Hey there YouTube, AJ here, and what I have here is a 2-tooth Model A steering box. Model A started with a 7-tooth steering box. The 2-tooth steering box is supposed to work easier, better, whatever, and I actually have 2 of these that I'm going to try to rebuild into one good one for my 1927 Model T hot rod. Now, I've already tore apart one of these, and I've determined that it is going to take a mixture of the 2 boxes to get me one good one. So I decided to go ahead and tear this one apart so I can see which parts of each one I want to keep. And I figured I probably should film this time because I didn't film it the last time. So this box normally has a plug here and an adjuster bolt here, and this bolt adjusts the depth stop of this upper bearing collar for the worm gear. This particular box, when I cleaned it up, I noticed this brass in here, which isn't supposed to be there, I don't think. And I think there's been a brass plug in there that's broke off, and they drilled out and re-tapped it, and it doesn't fit the standard size plug anymore. This one's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and tear this apart and see what condition the worm and the sector shaft are in. So I'm hoping I can use the internals of this one inside the other box to make one good box. So first things first, you got to take this flange loose. These 4 bolts aren't bolts, they're actually studs that are in the housing for the worm gear. I'm guessing if it doesn't break, the stud will come out with the nut. Actually, that nut is turning, isn't it? Nope, that one, the stud came out with it. There we go. Stud number 2. This one's actually different, and we'll see what it comes out, how it comes out. I'll show you, and then I'll show you how it's different. This stud actually has an adjuster built into it. All right, so just the nut came off of that one. Lock washer, and then we have the adjuster piece and a little cone that are in there, and that's gonna probably be really fun to get out. This one's pretty rusted up, so it might be really fun. That nut feels like it's really, really small. It almost seems like someone's ground on that. That's not good. Let's see if we can flatten off some of these points.
You want to get a socket on there? Yeah, something's...
Yeah, this stud just doesn't feel right. Wheel? Let's see what happens here. Come on, there, hey, the stud turned, so that's good. We will take that as a win, because I don't think any of this hardware is really going to be usable. There we go. So this nut here that we're trying to get out isn't actually threaded. It's oblong shaped. It's not the same on any of the sides. Oh, man. So that's so it can act as a cam and change the position of the sector shaft. And it's used for centering the sector shaft in the It's used for centering the sector shaft in the worm gear. No? Oh, it is loose. Okay. So we've got it a little loose there. Okay, we have some motion in it. Alright. Okay. Got our little cone that sits in that adjuster nut. So that's loose. Oh, okay, so now our adjuster is turning. I don't know if you can see that or not, but right there. So we need to work that loose now. Oh, we're making progress. Oh, my stud is loose. Great. Even better. So now that stud is actually turning out, because that stud actually has like a flange on it halfway down. So I can't pull it out, but it's completely loose now, and you need that completely loose in order to get this sector shaft out of the main body. Okay. That's interesting. We have like a little hardened, a little pill-shaped thing that was not in the other steering box. So I don't know what that's for yet. We want to keep that. We may need it. We have our sector shaft housing here. It's free. We do have this nut on it. Maybe we should try to take this adjuster off. Probably should be able to pop that out fairly easy, I would imagine. There we go. So there is the adjuster that this conical piece sits in. And you can tell it's split on one side. So when you tighten it all down, it shoves this in to tighten it into position. But if you look at the sides of the nut, each side is at a different thickness. So it pushes over on the housing. There is our stud for that adjuster assembly. There is our sector shaft. Doesn't look to be in horrible condition. It's a little worn, but not horrible. And it is really tight in this housing, so we're going to probably be using this housing and this, reusing it. There is a bunch of dried up grease in here, and you're not supposed to use grease in these. They're supposed to get a real heavy, thick oil. So I'm going to go dump out all this stuff, and I'll be right back. Now we have this end plate here, which is apparently a source of leaks, and it's where the light switch goes on a Model A. I won't be using that. So I'm going to be just capping this off flat, so, and not worrying about so I don't have to worry about leaks. Had this gasket in there, cork gasket, doing not much. And this one looks different than the other one. The other one didn't have this piece in here. So I gotta figure out what that is. Another one of those little balls just came out. That worries me, because did I just dump some? There's another one. Oh no, what have I done? Because I wonder if I dumped some out over there. Ah, what are those? They almost look like bearings. Oh, you know, that's what these are. How much you want to bet the bearing in here is falling apart, and that's what these are. These are the rollers that have come out of the bearing. I know I'd be better off with a real wrench, but it's what I have handy. There we go. So this bolt just tightens this collar on the steering box down on the upper bearing for the worm gear and clamps it into position there. And these bolts on this box are really rusted. It's crazy how the insides of this one is better than the other one, and the bolts and hardware on the other one were better. So anyway, we get that separated. What we want to do is we need to get this out of here. Well, it came out a lot easier on the other one. There it goes. It started to move. There we go. So now, this is our upper race, our bearing. This one doesn't look too bad. And then our worm gear. And then there should be a bearing in there that goes on the end of this. And as predicted, it is falling apart. You can see it's broken there. Missing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's missing 5 of the rollers. Okay, so on the back side of this box, so this is a lock nut with a big screw basically that goes through and adjusts the end play on your sector shaft. So that's what that is right there. This is another adjuster that's completely worn out. It's a rivet thing and it's completely worn out on this one. So we're not going to be using this box. In the bottom here, there is a race for this lower bearing. To get that race out, you take a punch through this and should be able to drive it out evenly. And since I'm not going to be using this box, I don't see a reason to take it out right now. I don't have a punch to do it mainly, so with the proper tool I could do it. As far as the steering shaft goes, upper bearing cup, bearing, shaft, worm gear. The only thing I think I haven't shown you is on the sector shaft, between the tooth part and the inner flange, there is a thrust washer in there that goes between those two. So I think what we're going to do is use these two pieces, this piece, keep that. Definitely going to need a new lower race and a new lower bearing. I will clean this stuff up, look at this one, and determine if I can get away with reusing this one or not. It doesn't look bad, so I want to clean it up first and check it out really good, but then we'll do that. So I guess that's the next step, is to start cleaning up my various parts from both boxes and determining which ones we're going to use. Okay, so I've gone through and picked out the best sector shaft. This one had less wear on the teeth and seemingly the best shaft here. I also picked out the best sector shaft housing and the best main body for the steering box. This one in particular, the reason I went with this one is this adjuster is riveted on and is in far better shape than the one on the other box. And then on the other box, which I have now hollowed out and made my mock-up box with the other pieces. But anyway, on the other box here, there's a brass plug broken off in this fill port, and I just didn't feel like trying to get all that out of there. I could probably tap it and get the brass out of there, but with that messed up adjuster on the other side of this, the riveted adjuster, that made my decision for me, instead of trying to repair that riveted adjuster, to just go ahead and use the other box. However, that meant I needed to get this bearing race out of the bottom of this box to use in the other box, because the bearing race in the other box is trashed. And getting this race out was no easy feat. It took a lot of work. However, this one still has the old bearing race down in there, and unfortunately I have to get that out because that one is not in good shape. So what I did mainly was started it like this, and according to instructions, so you're supposed to take a punch, go through these bolt holes and go side to side and tap out that bearing race. However, let me tell you, it took a lot more than tapping out. There it went. So much easier this time. It's always crazy how something will give you so much trouble and then you go to do it again and it wasn't that bad. So this is the bearing race from the other one, and this is the bearing race from the one I just pulled out. This surface is pretty rusted. It might clean up, but I couldn't tell, and the reason I really wanted to change it was because Looking at the end of the worm gear that came out of that box, you can see where the bearing rusted in place around it, and it actually has divots in this surface. So this gear's no good at all. That'll make it your steering really notchy. So this gear's got to go. We're not going to be using it. But I was worried that that race would have these same kind of notches in it. Give it a quick wire brushing here and see if it's really bad, or if I just knocked it out of there for no reason. Yeah, it's still rusty on the surface, so it's a good thing we took it out. We'll use the other one and move on from there. So looking at our steering shafts now, what the worm goes on. Got this marked for the length it needs to be to make my steering wheel the correct height. This particular steering shaft, when I got it, this end was all mushroomed out, and where someone had used a puller or was banging on it or something, but they had deformed all the threads. I managed to fix those threads to where the nut now works on it. I couldn't get a nut on there at all before. I lost the video of how I did that, but what I basically did was I used this tool, which is a thread saver tool. This particular one's made by Wilde, W-I-L-D-E, and it has different sizes from 1 1/4 inch, 1 1/8, 1 inch, 7/8, 3/4, and 5/8, and different threads sizes. But anyway, this 5/8 18-inch thread one is the one I used. And so basically, you separate it, clamp it on past the damaged threads if you can. So in this case, the damaged threads were kind of in it, so what I had to do was like clamp it on over as much good threads as I could. And I started with just a little pressure on here, and then started to thread this off and fix the threads. And then what I did was I reclamped it, tightened it down a little more, and did it again and again until I got good usable threads again, and basically straightened out that mushroomed end. So I managed to save this steering shaft that way, which is good. So now I have 2 steering shafts to work with. I don't want to use this worm gear. This worm gear is bad. So there's a couple different ways I could try to get this off. If I had a big enough press where I could run this down through, I could put it in there and then press the shaft out. However, I don't have a press tall enough for that. This is the upper race for the worm gear, and your bearing goes in between the worm gear and this race here, this race cup. One method I've seen suggested is to clamp this in a vise and then use it as a slide hammer to bang this gear off. Since I don't plan on reusing this cup or this gear because they're not in good shape, I'm going to go ahead and try that and see if I can get this shaft off that way. And if that doesn't work, or if it damages this gear, I will try a different method on the other one. So let's try that first. And crap goes flying. Alright, all that's doing is making a lot of noise because that isn't moving at all. Alright, I'm going to switch to plan B. So for plan B, we're going to go ahead and just cut it here. Then I'll be able to put this section in my press. Alright, we've got it set up in the press. Hopefully unfortunately that is not moving. I'm going to leave this sit with some pressure on it for a little bit and see what happens. If I didn't have this press set up where it was, I'd throw some heat on there and hopefully that would help. But now, I don't have to take this off. I just think it would be better to take this off and put it back on at the point I need it to be. I could cut the shaft, take out the amount I need, which is about 9.5 inches, put a solid rod in there, plug it, re-weld it, and not bother taking this off. However, if I do take this off and put it on this already shortened shaft, or cut this one and put this on up here, then I haven't compromised the integrity of this shaft, so I don't need to weld it. Plus, I will still have a hollow center that I'll be able to run my horn wires down through. So that's what I'm trying to do here, versus cutting it and plugging it and re-welding it and all that. So, of course, camera died, it's overheated again. It's, you know, it's been hot here, and GoPros aren't made for this kind of heat apparently. I failed to get this worm gear pressed off using my press. Probably can eventually get it pressed off. Just going to take more effort and more heat, and it's going through some heat cycles and such. In the meantime, I got tired of messing with it, and I went to my other one and was able to press the one that was in much better shape and, you know, less rust and everything. Was able to press it off of this shaft very easily. That's the good news. The bad news is I didn't realize that this worm gear has internal splines on it. It has one big spline and then several shallow splines. And as a result, this shaft also has one big spline which aligns directly opposite the keyway slot for the steering wheel. So it's like on the other side at the other end. What I can't tell is the other shallower splines. I can't tell if this shaft was machined for them or if it was just pressed on with a large press and kind of cut really shallow grooves in the steering shaft. I kind of think that was the case, because it kind of appears that that it may have just been shoved on there. And so anyway, I started looking around for a machine shop that could cut that one big groove onto what's left of my steering column. And then I got to thinking, even if I do that, I'd probably need them to kind of machine these other splines in there as well, because I don't think I have a big enough press to just press that on, or have to have them press it on, whatever. There's a lot of issues there. So I got to thinking about this, and, you know, how much it's going to cost me to have that done. Is it worth it? Blah, blah, blah. So I started looking at other alternatives. So one of the first things that came to mind with either putting a sleeve on the outside of the steering column or putting a slug inside the steering column. Again, I wanted to keep a hollow steering column to run horn wires through. Looking around trying to find something to do that with, I came across what's left of the tie rod I cut down for the drag link. And it's a little oversized for the internal diameter here, but it's got a good internal diameter, so I'd still be able to pass the horn wires through. So I think what we're going to try to do now is cut off a chunk of this. I think I'm going to aim for like a 4-inch slug, so I'll be able to drill through and plug weld it, as well as weld around the center. But I'm going to try to make a 4-inch slug and turn it down to fit in here. And that's where my old little lathe comes in. Hopefully I've got it fixed up well enough that I'll at least be able to turn down the outside of this a couple thou to get it to fit inside here. I think what I'm going to do now is press this worm gear back onto this shaft, machine down a slug to fit inside this, and then I'll take my longer part of the shaft and I'll cut that much off of it there. So instead of these being attached here, it'll be attached to that point up here, and we'll end up with the same length shaft as this. All right, so we got our piece made for sleeving the inside of the steering column. It's gonna go in there. I'm learning how to use the lathe, and I still don't have this lathe set up really good yet, but it didn't do too bad. I didn't worry about tool marks or anything like that because I was planning on sneaking up to the final diameter with files and sandpaper anyway. That way I'd have a good interference fit. And I'll press this in there. Before I can do that though, I need to prep the upper steering column. I need to hack off 9.5 inches or so of that. And I also need to readdress this taper because the Model A taper for the steering wheel is actually bigger than the later Fords. I'm gonna say like 32 through 48, but Speedway has a little adapter for Model A steering columns to adapt a 3-bolt wheel, but they say it's for Model A 1928 through 48.
Don't you believe it?
They are wrong. That thing won't fit on here. The older column even has splines, so this is like I think a late 29 to 31 Model A types fit with the taper. The earlier Model A's have splines on the steering wheel, not the keyway and taper. So if you go to buy the Speedway adapter thinking it's going to fit on your Model A, it's not without going to do what I'm about to do. I'm going to make this taper the same as the later Ford taper to fit the wheel I'm using. So I was getting ready to bevel this end for welding, like I just did on the longer piece, and I realized I probably want to press my worm gear back on before I do that. So we're going to go ahead and do that.
Oh, no, no, no.
Well, I really screwed that up. I don't know if you can see it, but I started pressing that on there and it started going on crooked and I didn't notice it. And then when I noticed it, I thought maybe it'll straighten out. It didn't. It just pretty much ruined this steering shaft. So I've got to get that other gear off now and save that other steering shaft. Fun stuff. Well, got the other worm gear and shaft section set up in the press here. I've got a lot of pressure on it. It's not budging. It didn't budge the last time, so I wasn't expecting it to budge. So got to go to more extremes. I'm gonna have to apply some heat to this, but this right here is the door to my Jeep, so I can't apply heat to it here, so I'm gonna move it out in the driveway where I can stretch out a torch to this thing, and we're gonna throw some heat on it and see if it goes. Okay, I'm almost out of acetylene, so I don't know if this is gonna work. We'll give it a shot here though. Hey, did you hear that pop? That's a good noise. That means we're moving. So we have this old bad gear separated from what's now my good shaft, and hopefully we'll be able to put the other good gear onto this shaft after it cools down and we clean it up. Well, I guess I'm ready to try this again. Gonna throw some lubricant on there this time. Got the shaft cleaned up. We're going to make some extra precautions. We're going to try, make sure this is cut square. I'm going to use this to distribute the weight from this. I'm going to do my best to ram this in here solid because this is my last chance. If I screw this up, then I've got other issues to deal with because I don't have any, I'm out of parts. Not really a precision instrument, but it's better than nothing. So far, I think it's all right. Still nervous, but it seems to be going better than last time at this point. Oh, I hope it just bottomed out because it does not want to go any further. Ha! We bottomed out. And I think, we're definitely a lot straighter than the last time. All right, I think we can call that one a success. So now we got to clean this up and prepare it for welding because we got to bevel this in. Okay, it's Saturday, and of course it's raining, so I'm limited on what I can do. I did get our 2 pieces of our steering shaft prepped for welding. I'm not going to do that yet. I want to get this taper straightened out first before I do that. My plan is to do that taper after I paint the sector shaft housing and the main steering box housing. Can't do that today because it's raining. So I think what I'm going to start with today, trying to remove these old bushings from the sector shaft housing.
If it's moved very, very little. Ow.
Really hope I'm not screwing up the wall. Hasn't moved at all. I'm wondering if I can like start caving this in. See if we can throw a little heat on this. All right, let's see what we can do now that we've added the extra hazard of burning ourselves to the mix. That seems to have done nothing, but make me burn myself a couple times. There's got to be a better way. I don't think this is going to do anything either, but you know. Oh, I think I moved that one. Ow, hot. All right, hang on. I think we made progress there. I don't know if I made progress or not. I might be fooling myself. I don't think I have. Don't touch the hot stuff. All right, so what I'm doing here, I'm working my way around the edge of the bushing and trying to cave it in, hoping that I break some of the surface tension between the housing and the bushing so I can drive it out. Or surface friction, I guess, whatever. I know what I meant. Basically, the less of the bushing that's touching the housing, the less resistance it'll have. So this is what I've done, where I've caved in the edge of the bushing, and I'm hoping that'll let me drive it out easier. Alright, I think what I'm going to continue to do is just work on tearing these up from this end, trying to just destroy them until where they come out in pieces. obviously driving them out is not going to work. It is amazing how 100-year-old parts just refuse to give up the ghost, man. They just don't like to come apart after they've been together for that long. So I have caved in the end of this one quite a bit now. I'm shocked that this bushing is still holding together like this. I probably should have just left them in it and ran with these. Okay, so I'm starting to get somewhere finally. I started driving against the folded over edge of the bushing, and that seemed to make me get somewhere. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cave it over again and keep trying to drive it out that way. And my vise broke. What has happened here? Alright, finally got one of them out. It was not fun. Let's see if we can get this other one out. Okay, we managed to get the other one out. So we need to clean this up now and press in the new ones. And let's pray that goes better than this. Alright, we're prepared to press in our bushings now. It does matter which way you insert these. There's a groove that starts on this side, and there's another one there. They're open to this edge. They are not open to the other end, so they stop short of the end here. That's the same way on both, because the way the sector shaft housing is designed. So this part here is going to be internal to the box where the main grease reservoir is. In the end of this shaft, bore, whatever you want to call it, there's a hole here with a groove on the inside that basically allows oil to get to the center of this sector shaft housing. The end of the bushing with the opening goes in to the middle so it can pick up oil in the center of here to lubricate the bushings and the sector shaft. All right, let's go press in these bushings. All right, let's start by lubricating the situation. It'll hopefully make it a little easier for insertion, because we do want these to go in square and not screw up the bushings. Let's hope they go in easier than they came out. We are inserting, and that should be flush with the surface. All right, so next step is to paint the pieces. Tape up we want to tape up all the parts we don't want to get any paint in. Ceiling surfaces and, internal surfaces. Okay, while that's drying, we can start working on this taper, because this steering wheel does not fit this taper. It doesn't go on far enough. The Model A taper is larger than the later Model Fords. And this is a boat steering wheel, has the same taper as a Ford. It only goes on so far, not far enough to get our nut on there. I could buy $100 and some reamer and ream this out to make it bigger, but that seems kind of stupid. So what I'm going to try to do is reduce the size of my taper here to fit this. Now I'm going to try to use the lathe to do that, but this shaft is too long for the length of my lathe. So I got to kind of improvise. What we are going to need though is something to support the end of this shaft. We don't want, obviously these little jaws aren't big enough to hold this solid out here. It's going to be going crazy, and that's not good. Our improvised tailstock holder, or whatever you want to call it here. I have a bit in my chuck, so we're going to take that and just slide this back, and that gives us our marker where we need to drill our hole. All right, let's see. Whoops, that's the wrong side. All right, let's see how we did. Okay, it fits. All right, there we go. It just barely fits, but that should be good. We want it snug. We get our big clamp out. Yeah, let's see what we can do. It's not bad, but it's going to vibrate. So let's get that strap. All right, hopefully that won't go anywhere. Let's get the marker out. I know the length of my taper needs to be 1.125". So that's from where the nut goes all the way down to where the steering wheel needs to sit. Let's put on some safety goggles and see how this thing's spent. Oh, we gotta plug it in first. Contact. Woohoo! All right, hang on. It was spinning pretty true until it came loose here. I didn't have it tight enough in the chuck. Oh well, I guess I'll still use the lathe and keep it chucked up like this because it'll make it easy to turn it as I go, but it looks like I'm gonna have to do this all by hand. Would have been so much easier, faster if I could have used the lathe to spin this. So what we're just gonna do now is sit here and file this by hand and turn it by hand. It does make it easier to hold at least, so that's nice. All right, after I don't know how long, hours of filing, I don't know how long it's been, but look at that. We now have a steering wheel that fits our column. Look at that, we're set. All right, so I know my camera overheated and died and froze at the end of yesterday, but getting ready to, I think the last thing I was saying was I got my ends beveled to join the two shafts together. Before I do that, put in my internal sleeve. I want to drill all the way through here, a couple of holes for rosette welding. And I actually have these shafts turned 90 degrees from their final position because I don't want the rosette welds all in a row. So basically when they go to mate these up, they'll be opposite each other like that, if that makes sense. But so anyway, we're going to try to center punch this. Cutting fluid. There's one. There's two. Okay, now we're going to enlarge this out to 1/4 inch so we can make a bigger rosette. Okay, hopefully we got everything set up here for the press. I put the internal sleeve, it's been in the freezer overnight, hopefully to make it go in easier because metal contracts, etc. But I have a few different sockets here. Hopefully I've got one of the right size. I should have sized that before I put it in the freezer. I'm gonna go pull it out of the freezer and hopefully, oh, before we do that, let's lube this part up. Hopefully we'll go grab it, we can get it in there, pressed in. Let's hope this goes smoothly. All right, here we go. Okay, went in pretty good so far.
Can't rush too much, I don't want to screw this up. I only got one shot at it.
Seems to be going in pretty square. Think that's good. half of it done. The other half's going to be harder. Before I go ahead and start this part of the operation, I want to go ahead and weld my rosettes on the lower shaft here, because we don't want the press accidentally pushing this in when it's supposed to be this going over top. Okay, we got the patient all covered up here. We definitely don't want to get splatter on this gear, so we're trying to prevent that as best we can. Kudos for me for actually thinking ahead one time. Alright, let's clean this up and see what we got. Okay, we got this shaft prepared and ready. Let this cool down so it'll not be as big. And then we'll two shafts together and hopefully get a full column going here. So I'm getting ready to go put this in the freezer. And before I do that, I want to mark my shafts because I got to keep that orientation correct in order to center my steering wheel. I need this slot to be 180 degrees from this keyway. Alright, we're getting ready to try this here. We have our shaft. Put this on, this big thick washer on there with the nut to help protect the threads, because I'm going to have to pound against that. I'm going to be doing that on a piece of wood to further try to help that. Before we even get started, let's lube this end up with some Croil. And then we have a block of wood here to put on top of our other piece, because we can't fit this in the press, so we're gonna have to try to hammer it together. So hopefully this goes halfway decent. All right, so I'm gonna run in and get the piece out of the freezer and cross your fingers, say a prayer to whatever deity you may or may not pray to, because I'm only gonna get one shot to get this, and I gotta get it right the first time, and I hope it works. All right. That. Where's our arrows? I'm already screwed up because I've lost my arrow. Oh, there it is. Doesn't feel like it's moving at all. Not going well so far, folks. Damn it.
Oh no, it's already loose.
Does not look like it's moving. This is not looking good for me. Maybe moving a little bit. All right, let's see if we can take some of the bounce out of at least one end of it. All right. We got about 9/16 left to go, so it has moved a little bit. That's encouraging. Ow. There's got to be a better way, but I don't know it. Only got about a 1/4 inch to go, so we're moving. All about an eighth. Oh, we got less than an eighth. We are really close. In fact, maybe I should leave it there so I could get a weld onto the center sleeve. We are all but there. There we go. Woo! we are good to go. Looks like we suffered no damage. We are together. We need to do our rosette welds, then weld this together. Look at that. Okay, we got our shaft clamped into this piece of heavy angle iron. Idea is that using it clamped into this corner will hold it straight and keep it from warping while I weld on it. Well, I'd say the hard part is done, but I've learned to quit saying stupid things like that. I don't have a piece of steel now. I'll have to get another one, but what I'm going to do is get a piece to go around the outside and basically put an external sleeve as well. I don't think it needs it, but I just want to make doubly sure. However, I don't need to do that right now. I can come back and do that later, but this gets me far enough now that I can go ahead and rebuild my steering box and get the steering box in the car. So that's what we're going to do now. Okay, so we're ready to start assembling this thing, I hope. And I've got the main bore here lubricated up. And the first thing we have to do is take and put that little race all the way down in there. Anyway, I've got that race in the freezer. Had this sitting out in the sun. I'm going to run in and get the race now and see if we can get it set in there. All right, here we go. Put some lube on it. And well, it did not drop all the way in like I was hoping. Let's get it square. Come on. Alright. So we're going to have to do some tappity-tappities. All this is complicated by the fact now I've got grease all over my fingers and I don't want to get lube all over the freshly painted exterior of my housing. Alright. We're going to have to use some ingenuity here. Why did I paint it first? Should have painted it after. Oh, this side's not way off. What happened there? Yeah, I think we got it. Go around it one more time just for good measure, but I think we got it in place. Woo! Okay, we got that done. So we can take this and move it into the shade now, so we don't have to roast out here. Okay, well, I'm not quite ready to start rebuilding yet, other than getting that bearing race in there. First thing I need to do is mix up some lubricant so I can lubricate parts as I go. Internet is all over the place on what to put in these boxes. Everything from 0 grease to different weights of whatever steering magic fluids. I'm afraid of just using grease because I'm afraid it won't flow into where the sector shaft bushings are. So I decided to go with one of the magic formulas, heavyweight gear oil, and some magic make your engine run better stuff to thicken it. Slow leaks, according to, if you believe what the internet gurus say. Kind of looks like honey, a little thinner than honey. First thing we need to do is put our lower bearing in. I'm not going to like pack these or anything. I just want to get them, have something on them so they're not completely dry. In theory, the lube should flow down to them once I fill it in. So now we move on to our worm gear next, and this stuff smells good. Oh, I didn't mean to get on the floor. Shit. gotta go in there. And for our upper race, we need another bearing. Where's the other bearing? This goes this way, right? Yeah. Okay. Smear a light coating in there. All right. Oh, one of the things we got to make sure we do when we put this back in is to make sure this groove here is lined up with that bolt hole, because that is where the adjustment is made on in play this way in the steering shaft.
Good so far?
Okay, we're getting close. See, it's just barely moving now. That's pretty tight. Okay, all the end play's really out of it. It's not going anywhere. So what we want to do is put our bolt in. So you're supposed to get the shaft to where you don't have any end play, which I don't. Then you need to run this bolt in until it bottoms out into the collar, and then back it off an 1/8 turn. Okay, I have to be hitting there. Okay, so I'm tight. We want to back it off an 1/8 of a turn, and then tighten our lock nut. Okay, now with that set, we can put in this bolt to tighten this collar down and hold this in place. It actually goes through, but we'll put it on this side. And lock washer that. Okay, we have shaft in box. This plug will eventually go in here. I'm just going to stick it in there for now. That's our fill plug. The next thing we need to put in here is this end plate and this gasket. This is the original end plate. This end plate with this tube on it, what that's for is that runs up inside the steering column tube and basically eliminates this point here as a place that it could leak out of by getting this tube above the level of the lube in the box. These ears on the side are for, I think, for the light switch that used to go on the bottom of here. I'm not using that, so I'm going to go delete those. I'll be right back. Deleted those off. It's not that I needed to delete them. They weren't hurting anything. I just thought it would look better without them since I'm not going to be using them anyway. Put our gasket on there. Slide it up inside the steering column. Now, screws for that. On the old box, there was this steel washer and a felt washer that went in there, and that was the seal. I don't know if I really need to put that back in. I don't have a new one of these, so the old one's hard, but it's there, and really, I don't know. I guess it couldn't hurt to have it in there. So, I think it went in this way. Oh, that's not going to go around that tube. That decides that. That's not big enough to go around the tube, so we're not going to put it in there. We'll just hope it seals like that. All right, decision made. And that hollow tube will still allow my horn wires to run through there, so that's good. Too much on that. All right. All right, the bottom piece is in. these are my old studs. Okay, now I need another nut. Tighten our two nuts together. And now we should be able to tighten our stud in. Alright, so there's our first stud. Now we gotta take our two nuts back apart. Alright, so I gotta do that 2 more times. Okay, so got the other 2 studs in. Hope you appreciate the fact I didn't make you watch that. This last stud's a little different. It consists of a nut, this conical washer spacer thing with a split in it, and another weird nut that's off center, and it's got a recess for that cone, and it's split as well. And then a special stud that has a little flare on it to go in this flared hole here. The reason this is different is because this one actually is an adjuster. So what happens is nut is essentially a cam, and when you put it on there into the base, it moves the sector shaft housing around. I think it adjusts how it centers in the box. We'll do that in a second. But anyway, onward. While we're thinking about it, we're going to put a new thrust washer on our sector shaft. This sets our end play on our sector shaft, threads into the other side of the box here. And it has this lock nut that goes on it. Once you get it set, you tighten the lock nut down. One thing you gotta be aware of when you put this together, you want this slot to be pointing up in your box when you put this in the middle of your gears, I think. Maybe it doesn't matter, but I think it does. And then when your gearbox is up and in position, this divot on the top of the sector shaft should be pointing up. And that is for your pitman arm bolt to go through. Okay, I think that's roughly in like middle of the worm gear, so I'm gonna leave it there. We do have these positioned in the correct places. So next we have some gaskets, a shim. This is the old version for that, don't need that one. This will go between the frame and the end of the exterior end of the sector housing. I have no idea what this shim is for. It does fit this perfectly, but there's no way it can go in here because it'll fall down inside. I have no idea what that's going to go. Maybe that goes between the frame and that gasket? I don't know. We'll have to figure that out. And we got 2 different sizes here. Okay, that one seems to fit in that recess. What's this one do? Ah, that fits perfectly around there. I wonder if there's 2 different housings. Does this one fit in there? And then maybe it goes like that. I guess we're going to try that. That's the way they seem to want to fit, but I would think it's going to push this. That would just seem to fall in. I'm just going to go with just this one. All right. This one goes in there.
Start our nuts on housing. Okay, I'm not tightening these down yet. Just kind of getting close to position.
Oh, fuck. Well, we just spilled most of our gear oil. That's great. Well, I got the good, the bad, and the ugly here. The good is that I did get my steering box rebuilt, back together, adjusted, etc. Painted, so that's good news. The bad, the GoPro continued to overheat and I lost pretty much all that footage, and it's not that big of a deal, I guess. I did have it pretty much all the way back together when the camera started malfunctioning and just dying. No matter how many new batteries I put in it, the heat was just killing it instantly. I did lose all that footage on how to adjust it and all that. Real quick, we'll go over that. There are really good videos on how to adjust these. Recap though, the first thing you do is adjust the depth of this upper bearing race with this screw here and the jam nut, and that sets your in play on your steering shaft. Then over here on this side, this cone nut that's offset like a cam, that moves your sector housing around kind of up and down this way to set the engagement between the sector shaft gears into the worm gear. Then down here on the bottom, there is this little rivet adjuster here that you use to center the sector gear to the steering worm. And then on this side here, this screw and jam nut sets your in play for your sector shaft going in and out of the box this way. Not the best explanation, I know. Now the ugly. It leaks. It leaks a fair amount. I was expecting it to leak. I was not expecting it to leak this much. However, it seems to be leaking less now. Originally, this bolt here was leaking, and it still is a little bit. I'm thinking that's coming through the threads. I don't think it's this. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe it is. Yeah, it is. Okay, so it is this end plate's leaking somewhere in there. I did retighten these down, and it got a little better. I'm probably gonna have to take this off and put in some RTV and maybe some thread sealant on these bolts, because these bolts do go all the way through into this housing and could be leaking there as well. So I think that's probably where it is leaking. It's the threads. Maybe it's coming out and leaking around this seam. It is leaking a little bit at this joint. Just a little, not a much. Well, more than I would like. And again, same thing. Maybe I should have used some RTV on that seal in there. I did later find a video where they suggested that. However, where I expected it to leak, it's actually leaking quite a bit. And that's why this tape is still on there. It's actually letting it drip out of the shaft, run down that tape, and hit the funnel. And this is how much is leaked out in, I guess it's almost been 24 hours. And I guess about that much went into the box. So I'd say not quite a quarter's leaked back out. Now maybe it was a level thing. Maybe I just overfilled it. I did fill it all the way up to the bottom here. I didn't measure it in. So that would be up to here. I'm still surprised that thick of stuff flowed that well and is seeping out through the shaft. It was pretty tight fit. So I'm kind of surprised about that. But I shouldn't be, because everybody says they leak. I'm going to let it go like this for now. I'm actually going to go ahead and put it in the car and just kind of watch it, monitor it for now. Because I'm going to have to take this all apart again anyway. And at that point I have a couple of options. Take it back apart, try to reseal it. I could see how much leaks out of it and maybe go to the 00 grease and see if that's any better. Maybe do both of those things. Maybe find a Ford F1 box in the meantime and then just go ahead and redo an F1 box for it. I don't know. Those are my options at this point. But for now, I'm going to go ahead with as is and put this in the car. So those are my options. You know, we'll figure that out later, I guess. So much of this car I'm figuring out later. In the meantime, thank you all for watching. Thank you for bearing with me with the stupid camera problems. I see a lot of YouTubers having trouble with GoPros. It's a very common issue, I guess. I did see yesterday that one of the things is like make sure your camera is on the latest software, so maybe, and that might help. I haven't updated my software in a long time, so I'm going to try that. Anyway, thank you for bearing with me. Thank you for watching. Thank you for hitting me with those likes and commenting. I appreciate input. I know a lot of people probably are going to say, why are you even bothering going through this with this steering box? I don't know, we'll see. It's what I have, and I can get some steering in here it'll make moving the frame around in my driveway a lot easier. So anyway, if you're watching more than one of my videos and you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? It's free. Go ahead, do it. Make me feel good. Try to get me to 1,000 subscribers. It doesn't matter in the end. I am going to keep making videos of this. I do enjoy making the videos. It's a little bit of a creative outlet, and it's fun to learn. But I do wish I had more time to do it. But so yeah, now I did want to end this video though with getting this back into the car, and that's going to be a whole ordeal. And with all the trouble I had with the box and the camera, yeah, I just ran out of time, and the video is getting way too long. So I guess that's going to be in the next video, is like maybe trying to do a couple things to seal this up. I don't know. And it is going to be a lot to get this box into the car, and I'll show it in the next video, but I'm basically going to have to take the motor free and shift it over to the passenger side in order to be able to get this in. So until then, YouTube, later. Beep beep. Yeah, my way.